right, welcome to Incubus on Records. Here with Jose and Brandon from the band. Thank you for joining me in my house.
Yes.
No
Thank you for
problem.
having us at your house.
It's quite luxurious.
It is.
Very smart
It's extremely
house.
luxurious, and usually with kind of, decor style like this, the books are fake, not here.
Right.
You can investigate them on
These
the
are
way
real
out.
books.
All real.
You don't have to tell people that, though.
Well,
You want to be
people at home,
well read
kinda-
is the way to go.
Yeah, it is. I've been reading a lot about you guys today in anticipation of this chat and just sort of familiarising myself with the journey so far. I guess for a lot of old school Incubus fans like me, the record that probably was our introduction was Science. That's 20 years old this year.
Yeah.
That's mad.
It is mad. It's
That record's old.
It puts stuff into perspective, yeah. It's really wild, because, oh my God. In certain ways, it feels like it was just like, not that long ago. Like it would,
I remember it vividly.
yeah, but then in certain ways, it
Do you
feels like
remember
it was
it
a different
vividly?
Yeah.
lifetime,
Wow.
right?
Well, that was like time is weird like that, but it's our first proper budget to record a record,
Yeah.
get new instruments, and it was like,
We were in a real studio.
yeah, it was like, just an exciting time.
It was a super exciting time in music as well. And you had bands like, Deftones, System of a Down, like a lot of your contemporaries, coming out at the same time with really exciting left field, progressive, interesting metal music.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for those descriptions. I like all of those.
Yeah.
And could all aptly be applied to, yourself and those two bands as well.
Sure.
Which was different to some of the other bands because there was that wider sort of new metal scene that everyone was lumped in with, and there was obvious and, quite distinct differences between all the bands within that, but then
Yeah.
also between some of them and others, if that
Yeah.
makes sense,
Sure.
without offending anyone.
Sure. And some of those bands survived, in particular, the ones that you mentioned. Like
Yeah.
we toured with the Deftones just 2 years ago in the States, and these guys are crushing it. They sound so good. It's really wild how
Yeah.
they haven't really skipped a beat. And System of a Down aren't playing as often, but I have such fond memories from touring with them, and I have such high admiration for their unique skill set as a band too. So I hope they make another
Family
record.
Values tour.
We did a couple dates
Right.
on there, but we toured with them, not just on our own, but we did the Ozfest with them.
Right.
And we played with them in Europe. I mean, we spent a lot of time with them. And it was fun. We were both kind of upcoming bands, going out playing clubs together, and it was really cool. We love those guys to death.
We got in the van. That was like the van years. Those were the van years. We had the van. They were a little bit more smart, and they had like a motorhome.
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right.
I remember seeing it and I was like, wait, you could do a motorhome?
That's fancy.
Why are we in a van? They have like a bed in there. We had, we took back seats out of ours and put like a gross mattress.
Yeah,
in
that's
the back.
horrible. Lugging our own gear in a trailer. It was
Yeah.
good times.
We
So
think we
if you
call
want
them,
to tour on a budget and do it smart, the motorhome is the way to go.
nowadays I think so, yeah. There's something about the van that kind of looks more hardcore though.
Yeah.
You pull up,
Road warrior.
We were
Totally.
thinking about going back, but just getting a fleet of 15 passenger vans.
we each get our own.
Yeah.
That would be super like sustainable, wouldn't it?
It was more sustainable, yeah.
How do you, as a band, how do you create? How do you write? Do you do it all collectively in one room, together in the moment? Or do you individually develop and then come together and then develop further?
It's actually all of those things. One of the things that has stayed interesting about making music with Incubus, I think for all of us, is the fact that there was really no one way that we go about writing a song.
Right.
Sometimes it's more old school band style, where we're all just in a room together and somebody starts playing either a drum riff or a guitar riff or a melody or something, and then a song just kind of spontaneously happens as a result of that little spark. And then sometimes it's a little more traditional, where it's Michael and I holed up in a room somewhere. The
Lennon and McCartney style, just
totally,
two
just
guys in
vibing
guitar.
off each other. That camera, right?
Yeah.
And highly caffeinated and just kind of geeking out on one particular melody or a guitar riff or something, and then everything in between. So if there was one way of writing a song, I think that there'd be far less bands and artists and things, because the thing that's amazing about it is that there's really no wrong way of going about it. So however you arrive there is fair.
Are you one of those bands that are as interested in the process itself as the end result as well?
I personally am more interested in the process than the end result.
Okay.
The end result is sort of a nice.
It's good to have a record out at the end.
Sure.
Yeah, well, it's good to have like sort of like over there's the horizon. We should probably go in that direction. But
Yeah.
like the fun part is sort of getting lost along the way, and sometimes you follow the path, and sometimes you veer off the path and you stub your toe, and then as a result of looking down at your bloody toe, you see that ooh, it's this cool rock right here, and then you start digging a hole, and that's how.
Yeah, as it progresses, we get more and more excited.
Yeah.
The end result is kind of like there's the finished product.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in the process, it's kind of bumpy. It's sometimes things fall out of us. Other times it's more strenuous. But it's there's no I can't really break down the process. It's just sort of a natural thing that happens. But I enjoy making records and I enjoy recording records, which is completely different than playing them live and playing music live. They're two separate animals. But the whole thing, all of it, doing that part, living through that part, having an end result, and then bringing that part to life later, on tours. It's kind of an incredible world we live in doing that,
You're all based in the same sort of region or area.
Yeah.
And so you're all kind of geographically close.
Yeah.
It seems like there's an emotional sort of kinship still very strong, just from this,
Absolutely.
5-minute short encounter that I'm having right now.
Sure.
So it seems like you're still bros, right? Like,
Yeah.
totally.
Well, Jose and I have known each other since we were in elementary school.
Right, wow. So you
and-
can't kind of recreate that level of history and
Yeah, I mean, we're brothers
yeah,
at this point.
one of my oldest friends,
Yeah.
and still blossoming and growing. It's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
And I feel like our band in general has got this chemistry that we've kind of been through the ups and downs, and I'm sure there's more to come. But the struggle to kind of come out of only makes us stronger at the end. And it's 26 years of that, so it's like I think we're pretty strong.
It's the most successful marriage I've ever been exposed to, and it just happens to be 5 men. So go figure. I don't know. The fruits of our love are the songs. It's and then we get to see them kind of on a nightly basis when we're touring. It's such a weird, magical experience to have, to work on something so hard and put so much of like your heart and soul into something with your best friends in the world, and you toil over it for like a year, and you're crafting it and you're whittling it, and you get down to this end result, and then you kind of release it into the world, and then you go out on tour and you play the songs, and then some of them really connect with people for whatever reason, and then they sing them back at you at the top of their lungs. It's the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. I know. I mean, it's hard to describe that experience.
I think it's a good analogy. It's very much a family-like setting where it's like we've created this child, and you kind of see it grow and develop.
I love how you did this. Go now.
Take it away, and you let it go, and you kind of see it like evolve and grow, and people connect to it, and it's like
because they do evolve and grow, don't they, as well? It's not just that you're protecting it until it's ready to be introduced into the world, and then once it's introduced, it stays the same. With time, the songs themselves and people's relationships to them evolve and bend and shape and change.
Yeah.
And
that
your own relationships to them do as well.
In that respect, a song is never really finished. And that's another thing that's kind of fascinating and alluring about making music, is that you could be like finished with a song and really mix it, master it, put it out into the world, and then it goes into the world, and it's going through countless interpretations on a daily basis, moods, life experiences, breakups, get-togethers, parties, psychedelic experiences, long drives. It's like all these different ways that it experiences a life of its own. And so, they're like our kids. Some of our kids are little assholes, and like we work so hard on them, we put everything, and then they just suck.
They don't want to play ball.
And they just don't turn out well.
We've kicked it out. We've definitely kicked some out of the house.
Yeah.
And they haven't returned.
Tough love.
Didn't you start writing this album, say, like 2 years ago, and then didn't you get to a point where you were like, oh, there's still better stuff coming? So did you almost shelve a bunch of stuff and then continue?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, we still have. I mean, we started working a couple years ago, and we put out 4 of the songs on an EP, Trust Fall Side A.
Yeah.
And
Will there be a side B?
Well, that's what was the idea.
Right.
But with juggling, touring, and writing, it was really difficult, because we have to take time out to go and rehearse and get ready for a tour, then come back and decompress. It I don't think it was the best way of doing that. So we kind of took some time and made a really concerted effort to put out a full record. You know, the idea was great, but it just didn't work out as smooth as we wanted to. And from that process of writing the EP, we've got probably a couple dozen ideas that have been left untouched.
I think that there still will be a side B.
Well, there's no time frame on something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
what's
that's
fun
true.
about it.
That's true too.
We could polish some of those turds and put them.
Release them
You
out
really
to the
can
world.
polish it out.
That's how we talk to the songs.
That's the trailer right there. Do you have any songs in particular that you're interested to see how they'll go over in the live environment off the back of what you were just saying a moment
All of
ago?
them.
From the new album, you mean?
Yeah.
So we've been rehearsing over the past, I don't know, handful of weeks and learning how to play this album. You know, we write it, it goes through so many different versions of itself before it lands on what the finished product is. And then we mix it and we master it. And then it's usually quite different than how it started. So we have to learn the songs again. We've been doing that and they all kind of sound awesome live. They're really fun to play, and but we've only played our song "Nimble Bastard" once in front of an audience last week, and that one I think is going to be a really fun one to once people really know it. I don't know though; it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, there's
It'll be
always
sad too to see which ones don't work.
Yeah, there's always a period where we kind of experiment, trying to sift through our collection of music to play and whittle down to a couple dozen is very difficult. And with the new record, seeing what works, what doesn't work. But I think because a lot of these songs were sort of conceived with Mike and Brandon on a very basic sort of level, that all of them, to me, all of them seem like they just go over well, live, the way we've been playing them, and sort of, we're kind of, the record's one complete sort of
thought.
Yeah. And there's so many different levels and so many different layers in recording. So when you start playing them live, you kind of have to figure out how do you make it sound good and feel good. And it's sort of a different animal, So now that we've been doing that, it's like every song is sort of coming into its own and it's feeling really good and it's really fun to play. It's the first time I think it's going to be hard not playing all these songs, live. So
it's been occurring to me that we have to actually choose just a couple. You can't play too much live stuff at a concert at this point in our career. People get mad.
Especially not somewhere like the UK where you guys haven't really been for the last few years. I think you did one show a couple of years back, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
We miss you.
Yeah, we miss coming here.
We miss you guys too.
Are there plans for a tour this year?
Yeah. I don't think this year.
Right.
We kind of have the year booked up pretty much, but I think the beginning of next year, 2018, we'll do a proper tour and probably come back to do festivals and stuff in the summer. So we definitely plan on spending some time here for sure.
So you guys basically for the next 2 years will probably be in the van or what is now a nice bus.
5 vans.
And
on
playing
and off,
shows all over the world.
That's the hope. Yeah. And the plan so far. So we have a tour with Jimmy Eat World in the States for this summer, and then we're going to go to South and Central America to do a bunch of concerts. And then from there, we're hoping to kind of chase the sun. So if we do end up here at the beginning of the year, it'll be
You'll have failed.
crappy weather.
Let's talk some more about this new record, some of the perhaps lyrical themes, musical inspiration. Do you draw from life, as in do you write sort of about personal experiences, or do you delve more into sort of storytelling and abstract areas?
All of those things
All of the
that
above
you
again
just
as
said.
well.
Once again, with lyric writing, there is no one way that I've ever gone about doing it. I kind of draw from all sources of inspiration. Some of it is definitely drawing from personal experience. I think that's the main source of inspiration. I was in the midst of a sort of slow, thankfully graceful unfolding of a long-term relationship while we started to write this album. So there was some of that seeping its way into the lyrical content.
So when you're singing about the loneliest night of your life, it really was.
It definitely was, but then it's also coupled with a lot of these sort of, there's a handful of these observations on the album where it's making reference to sort of the digital culture that's been evolving very quickly in the world.
A little too quickly.
A little too
it's
quickly.
Worrying, isn't it?
To the point, yeah, where we don't actually know where it's headed, which is kind of exciting in certain ways, but in other ways we could be.
Or long-term repercussions.
Or long-term
of
repercussions,
that,
yeah, like the way that our neural maps are being rewritten so quickly and without much control over it. So there's reference to in that song "Loneliest" the sort of the digital culture that awaits you. Even you could be at your loneliest and be more connected than you've ever been in your life, quite literally.
Yeah.
There's also themes around surveillance and paranoia. There's a song called "Love in the Time of Surveillance," which is, I think it's a really fun song. It's really fun to play live, but it's alluding to, once again, this kind of digital culture that's evolving so quickly and the surveillance state that's evolving alongside it, which we're all seeing, once again, unfold
For the
before our
greater
very
good.
eyes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
For our benefit.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that Orwell would be a prophet in that regard? But it really is turning out like that.
Yeah.
And even like Huxley with Brave New World, this stuff, it's remarkably relevant today. If your viewers haven't read either of those books, it's a really good time to read Brave New World in 1984. If only for the entertainment value, because it's high. But then there's also the element of prophecy that was involved. Which is really interesting. And then anything even down to, gosh, what's another song? Nimble Bastard is...
I've just seen the video.
Oh, right.
My favourite breed of dog in the world, like I'm dying to own a whole litter of them, is the French Bulldog. I love them.
Be warned, though,
Do you own one? Are they?
Yeah, well, the one that attacks me in the video is actually my
Right.
Frenchie Bruce, and I'm still hurt that he would betray me like that.
That was his first lead role.
Yeah.
He's
in
got a
video.
bright future ahead of him.
Yeah.
Killed it.
Yeah. he was the elderly Frenchie in the mix in this video.
Right. Go on, what were you going to warn me against?
Oh, warn you against French Bulldogs because they...
Fart a lot, I hear that.
No, I was going to say more. They will turn on you. They'll
They have a
put on
tendency to
jetpacks
gang up on you,
and call all their friends and try and destroy you when you're trying to make a music video.
light you on fire,
Yeah,
throwing stars.
Yeah.
The whole gamut.
yeah.
Cold, and they look so
Cold.
loving.
Right.
What are you going to say? So Nimble Bastard, in terms of, I guess, the lyrical.
Oh yeah, the
flow of
lyric.
that one.
It's a song that's in praise of someone who has a remarkable adaptability. Someone who has an ability to see the world optimistically, even in amongst some pretty horrifying circumstances. And so what I'm saying in the song is basically, teach me. Will you please show me how you can see what you're seeing and be in such dire circumstances yourself? You know what I mean? So it's about someone who sort of has a preternatural ability to adapt, I suppose.
Who worked on this record with you? I know Brendan O'Brien has been like a collaborator in the past. Who produced this record, and what was the sort of in-studio vibe and
Yeah,
approach compared to perhaps previous ones?
Yeah. We didn't work with Brendan on this album, though we love Brendan dearly, and we've made some really awesome albums with him, and I made a solo record with him for Sons of the Sea, and he's a wonderful guy. We worked initially with Dave Sardi on this album. He's worked with lots of people, Jet, Slayer, Macy Gray,
Wow.
LCD Sound System. He's been kind of all over the map. But then late in the game, the record was kind of nearing completion. It was pretty much done for all intents and purposes. It was finished. And our friend Skrillex came in just to listen to the album. And he asked if he could mess around in his verbiage, kind of mess around with this one song. And he made that song, he just tweaked it. He didn't like alter it sort of like in a way that it was vastly different. He just tweaked it, and it sounded so much better that, long story short, he ended up, like 2 weeks later, had mixed the whole album.
Right.
And did some sort of production type things to a handful of songs on the record too. So he didn't come in and just sort of like explode the whole thing and then piece it back together. He, most of what he did, honestly, was tweak EQ levels, so like the sonics of things, and just clarified everything. And that was really fascinating to watch. Also the way that he did it, he was like A-Bing our tracks that he was mixing with other things he was doing, but like deep pop things, and then old songs of ours, and other contemporary rock things. Old rock, he would pull them in and back and forth, A, B, and he would find these interesting sonic qualities in some of them, and then mimic them in certain places. It was really wild to witness.
Yeah.
The way he was working.
You
Like
can
a
just
crazy scientist.
that's exactly what it
Yeah.
was, because he wasn't like, okay, let's check out this song. He's just working
Yeah.
on his computer, and then he'll just put on a song and kind of listen and just, you know, and it's kind of bouncing all over the place, and then. And you know, he like brought clarity to it,
Yeah.
you know, because there's a lot of stuff going on, you know, and it's hard to balance, and he just kind of like brought out color and clarity, and just he really finished the record, you know. After that, we were like, now it's finished.
Yeah.
Now we were good to let it go into the world.
Fly, my pretty.
Yeah.
Where do you look at it from the technology standpoint nowadays? Because you've obviously always been a band that have tweaked and, you know, morphed sounds. Does that side of the sort of development in technology excite you in terms of, you know, the tools that you have to play with as creators?
Absolutely.
And do you employ as much of it as perhaps you'd think, or do you keep it fairly basic in terms of, you know, drums, bass, guitar, mic, old school, rock?
For the most part, we are pretty basic and I guess you could say old school, in the sense that we are a rock and roll band and we perform the instruments and we write the songs and perform them, you know, which is becoming like this outdated idea.
It's almost a rarity.
Yeah, to be the ones
Get
that
the
wrote
one
it.
riff,
Yeah.
copy, paste, go.
Play it, yeah. So, but some of the technologies have made the way we do things more exciting, and in certain ways easier. But we don't like to abuse the technologies. You could so easily now just hum any note into a microphone. You don't even need your microphone. You can just hum it into the speaker in your computer, and you can manipulate it into a song that could technically be a hit single. And so that's a way of doing things. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's not the way that we do things. So we like to try and keep some of these technologies in check, lest they sort of overrun the whole thing and then we don't sound like us. I think the reason we sound like we do is because you're actually hearing human beings playing instruments, and you're hearing the mistakes and the subtleties and the ghost notes and the breaths and, you know, those things that kind of help keep music kind of human.
That's what keeps us a band. You know, that's what we do, and I don't think we'll ever really lose touch with that. But seeing the other side, like when Skrillex took our mixes, we were in this great studio, and it had, you know, the big console and everything. And
it's like a multi-million-dollar console.
Yeah, like this beautiful room, and he didn't use any of it. He just was on it. The console was there to hold his computer and his
laptop
and his water. And that's another side where so many things have changed, and he can do everything on his computer, coming out the big speakers, and it blew me away because I'd never really seen that side, and it was just like, this is how music can be made. Kind of what Brandon was saying, you can just speak into your phone and make a song that way. And Skrillex can do that, and he kind of showed his ability with that, and it was kind of a good combination of what we do with the whole other side, you know, and we married it together, and that's kind of the record that we have now. And it was just really fun experience, you know, and experimenting with it.
Is there anywhere left in the world for you to still see and play as a band?
Quite a few places, actually. We've never played anywhere in India. We've never played anywhere in Africa, which I know our band we would absolutely love to go to those places.
I can imagine you'd have a pretty big market in both those places as well for what you guys do.
I don't know. I mean,
I've heard that we have lots of listeners in South Africa and in places in India. We've also only dabbled really in the Mideast and in like the United Arab Emirates, but we've had great shows when we have gone over there.
Yeah.
So wherever people want us, we'll go. So it's been such a trip to go to places that I never imagined we would ever play in, let alone just, you know, visit, let alone play in, like places in Southeast Asia, even places in the States, which you never thought you wanted to go.
But actually turned out to be all right.
We've been to a lot of times.
Yeah.
We've gone back
over and over
quite a few times. What's the weirdest place in the States for you that we went to?
Oh, I don't know.
For me, was Fargo.
Yeah, usually the most remote places.
Is that as it is in the film? That's basically
A little bit,
like
yeah.
a documentary.
Yeah.
It was a trip. It's a wild
Oh,
place.
yeah?
man.
Yeah. It looks crazy.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, those remote places where bands usually don't go to
Yeah.
are usually kind of like, you know, the most odd places to go.
But then you get almost like the most generous and raucous crowds because they're, you know, so deprived of entertainment.
I
When
think
it
so,
does
yeah.
come, they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of all over the world. You know, like South America is a relatively new market for us, and bands are going there more frequently, but it's not as common as like, you know, Europe or England or Australia. So when you go, like they're rabid fans and they just eat it up, you know. And it's some of our best shows are down there, probably because of that. You know?
Got to go to more places that have like a really rich football culture, because that's like the football chant.
Yeah.
really translates well into a rock and roll concert. That's why we've been back to Central and South America quite a few times since we started touring just a few years ago down there. They like chant. They sing the words, but when there's not words and it's just like a riff, they chant the riff. Well,
you've got to have good riffs to have that happen as well.
True. Mikey
Yeah.
writes some really good chantable riffs.
There's good riffage going on for sure.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming by, and don't leave it another 6 years till the next record, please.
We'll try not to.
Try.
Was there any
Yeah.
reason for the gap, or was it just kind of life happening? And obviously, you say your solo stuff, and
It's mostly life, and then we weren't sitting idle during that period of time. You know, we toured some. There was a whole touring cycle after we released If Not Now When, so that took up a year and a half of that, and then I did a solo record. We did an EP. We did a tour. I did a book. Mikey was working with other artists. Everybody was really sort of busy, so it didn't feel like that long. We came
Yeah,
back together. It felt
that's
very
cool.
natural.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like we were away from each other that long, but as I'm sure you can attest to, and you will sooner or later, the older we get, the quicker things seem to move. It's a funny thing, we're kids, it's like a month is forever. Now a month is tomorrow.
yeah,
It's really
I guess
wild.
it's relativity, isn't it? Because like,
It is, yeah.
if you're 40, 10 years is a quarter of your life, so that's you know.
Yep.
Whereas if you're 14, then it's like 80% of your life.
Absolutely.
So it does seem like longer.
Yeah. So we're sorry for the time gaps. We'll try and work on that, but
No promises.
no promises. We like things to be natural in
Yeah.
the way that they come together. We don't want to force this project at all.
Well, the album, by the time you watch this, will be out. So let's just say it's out right now. It's called Number 8. Thank you for your time. Jose, Brandon from Incubus, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.